What is up, awesome peeps? Brent McCluskey here with Electrified Reviews, and today we are reviewing the AddMotor M-70 Retro Cruiser electric bike. So, let's roll the B-roll. All right, awesome peeps. So again, this is the AddMotor MOTAN M-70 Retro Cruiser electric bike. We have reviewed quite a few bikes from AddMotor. It's a really cool company. They've just got so much to offer. They have so many different styles, so many different types of electric bikes. There's really something for everybody here. This one right here, the M70, starts for $1,799, $1,799 USD, which is, you know, we're getting into the kind of expensive territory. This is on the upper end, I would say. They're really almost the highest end of like the affordable electric bike. It's still affordable, but it's pricey. But along with that price comes some really cool features, which we will go over here. There's some really cool stuff for this bike. A couple of interesting things about AddMotor before we dive in. The company here offers a 1-year comprehensive warranty on this bike, which is pretty good. That's, I would say, maybe a little bit above average. 1-year warranty, that's just nice because look, if you get this bike, you know, you get it delivered to your house, there's probably not gonna be a dealer nearby for you. So having a decent warranty just kind of gives you that feeling of security when you order direct online, you know what I'm saying? Also, AddMotor has free shipping, which is kind of nice because a lot of times, you know, you can think the price of a bike is going to be, you know, $17.99, and you get to check out and it's like, oh, it's 300 bucks for shipping. And then it's like, well, now it's over $2,000. With this bike and with all bikes from AddMotor, at least for right now, it's free shipping, which is very cool. Now, as far as frame size and colors go, right now there's only one frame size, and it's going to be this frame size. What you see is what you get. And also the color here is going to be just this white color. Not a lot of variety here, not a lot of accessory paths, and that's kind of standard for AddMotor. They really kind of put together a bike that they think is good, and then they will offer that, you know? So this is not like a really highly customizable bike. It's really a what you see is what you get kind of ride, which is totally fine. You know, if you want to accessorize it, you just might have to go somewhere else to get different accessories for it. So without any further ado, let's dive into the specs here on the AddMotor M70. Very fun bike here. This has been, honestly, this has been just like a joy to ride around. It's been pretty fun. Okay, look, in the back here, we've got a 750 watt geared hub motor from Bafang, about 1200 watts of peak power and 85 newton meters of torque. So this is a very powerful, very peppy motor, and it brings this thing to a top speed out of the box of 20 miles per hour with the throttle or the pedal assist. However, you can very easily, very quickly change the top speed to be pretty much unlimited, and we've gotten this bike up to 32 miles per hour on flat ground with just a little bit of pedal assistance. I'm telling you, man, this is a really powerful bike, and you want a motor that's extra powerful for these kind of fat tire bikes. 20-inch by 4-inch fat tires. You want that extra power to overcome the rolling resistance offered by these huge tires. These tires are great. They've got a huge tire patch, which is good because it spreads the weight of the bike over a larger patch of ground. So if you're going through stuff like this, going through sand, going through mud, snow, whatever, these tires are going to really excel. And they also got a lot of air volume, so they kind of act as suspension, which is good because this bike is, you know, it's a hardtail and there's no front suspension. So it's good that there's suspension qualities to these tires. But really the biggest kind of drawback for fat tires, like I'm saying, is just they're big, and that big tire patch has a lot of rolling resistance. It slows the bike down and makes it feel sluggish, but that's not the case with this one because of that 750 watt motor right here that we're talking about. Thing is just, that's a thing of beauty. I love it. Now, we talked about the pedal assist. You can reach it with the pedal assist. You can see right here, the magnets right there by the crank. That's gonna be a 12 magnet cadence sensor on this bike. And like with all cadence sensors, there's gonna be a short stop and start delay from the time that I start and stop pedaling to the time that the motor actually starts giving up power and actually cuts out, right? And that's not a huge deal. That's just kind of indicative of really every cadence sensor. And that's why, like we always say when we come to this point, that, you know, torque sensors are kind of the way to go. They're a better component. They measure the torque placed on the cranks compared to the actual rotation of the cranks, and it makes it for a more responsive ride. But look, the problem with torque sensors is they're much more complicated and they typically cost a lot of money. So it's not uncommon to find cadence sensors on bikes at this price point. It's pretty common practice, to be honest with you. Now the battery for this bike is gonna be a 48 volt, 14.5 amp hour battery for a max range of about 55 miles or so. You know, with range, like we always say, look, it comes down to a lot of factors that kind of influence real world range. When companies give you that estimate, that max range estimate of, like for this one, for example, 55 miles, that's in ideal conditions, flat ground, tires are pumped up to the max PSI, probably low pedal assist level, but really, most of us don't ride like that, right? So typically I cut the max range about by half for real world estimates. So, you know, realistically, I could probably expect about 30 miles with this bike if I'm using the throttle heavily, if I've got a high pedal assist mode. Just something to keep in mind, you know? Now the battery itself is locking and removable. So there's a little key port right there. Throw the key in and you can pull this battery off. You can charge it separately from the bike, which is great because this is a big bike. This whole thing weighs about 85 pounds. It's way bigger than the average kind of retro style electric bike. So being able to take off this battery and charge it separately from the frame, I think is really, really pretty important here. Now the battery is, as you can see, it's kind of right under the seat. So the center of gravity is gonna be a little bit higher because that battery is higher up. You know, so look, the battery's higher up. Also, if you look at this bike overall here, it's cool because it is so much bigger than the average retro style cruiser, right? So if you think about it, you know, you can kind of sit right about here, which means, you know, your legs are kind of really far out, and it's like a fat boy style, like a Harley kind of posture. Your legs are out, your arms are up like that, right? Now, because my legs are able to extend so far, my pedaling stroke is, I'm not losing that much efficiency compared to the typical retro bike where the pedal stroke is really cramped, you know what I'm saying? You can get knee pain, not very efficient. This one is actually a lot better. You can actually pedal on this bike, but even still, you're really gonna wanna use the throttle for the most part and just pedal a little bit. It's just not meant for like pedaling a whole bunch and like commuting long distances by pedaling. It's just not really the style of this bike. It's not really what it's intended for. But also, one thing I want to point out about this is because you're sitting so far back, look, the motor's back here, the battery's right here, and then all of my weight is back here. This thing is extremely back heavy, and because it's so powerful, I just want to warn you guys that it wheelies really easy if you twist the throttle. So if you're just sitting here and I twist the throttle, it's just gonna pop up like that. I mean, it's because number one, it is powerful, but number two, it's just all that weight is back here. So, I mean, if you want a wheelie machine, this thing will do it, I mean, really easily. Yeah, just trying to like give you guys a feel for like the ride characteristics and stuff and how it feels to ride this bike, you know, because again, and also because your weight is so far back here, because the center of gravity is a little bit higher, there's not a lot of weight in the front. So this thing, it does have a tendency to kind of understeer. So the front tire can slip out from you when you're turning. So just something to kind of keep in mind, that the riding characteristics of this bike is just a little bit different. Just a little different here. That's not a bad thing. It's just something to get used to and something to kind of be aware of, you know? Now the brakes for this are gonna be Tektro brakes, Tektro mechanical brakes. In the front, we've got a 180 millimeter rotor. And in the back, we've got a 160 millimeter rotor. So different rotor sizes, and that's fine in my opinion, because they've got the larger rotor up front, which is what you want, because that's where the majority of the stopping power comes from when you're stopping. It comes from the front wheel, right? So it's good that they have the larger rotor up front. Now the stopping power on this bike, even though they are mechanical disc brakes, which are not as powerful as hydraulic disc brakes, Stopping power is going to be really, really good. And the biggest reason for that is just going to be the fat tires here. Going back to that tire patch, there's so much contact with the ground that there's almost no, there's almost no wheel slip. So even if I like hit the rear brake really hard, like on asphalt, yeah, you can still skid out if you want to, but there's just a lot of traction. So stopping power is really good on this. There's also motor inhibitors built in to the brake levers here. It's gonna be this wire underneath right here. So whenever I depress this brake lever, it's going to instantly cut power to the motor, ensuring that I have the shortest possible stopping distance. That's like a safety feature for this bike, right? It's particularly important for bikes like this that have a cadence sensor and for bikes that go this fast, because remember there's kind of that delay, that start and stop delay. So if I hit the brakes, that motor might still be active for like a half of a second. If I'm in an emergency stop, I want that motor inhibitor to say, nope, cut power immediately. Because then I'm not fighting against the motor when I'm trying to brake, you know, because otherwise I'd be, you know, fighting against my own weight and then also the motor, but because there's motor inhibitors, that's not the case with this. So very cool. Yeah, 85 pounds, man, this thing is heavy. Look, this is a heavy bike. It's heavy, it's unwieldy, it's a big old beast, man, but that's kind of the thing. I mean, this is gear, I think, for people who want a bigger bike. And I think the load capacity on this is pretty high, like 300 and I want to say 80 pounds, or maybe it might be 330, but it's a pretty high load capacity for this bike, which is great. I mean, it's a really strong frame here, aluminum alloy frame. The front forks are going to be steel. And even though there's no suspension on here, these are going to be really strong forks. And because they're steel, they're going to offer some vibration dampening qualities to them, which is going to be nice for like noisy roads, you know, like bumpy roads. It's going to help kind of mitigate that noise. Not going to help for jumps or anything like that. But those forks in conjunction with these tires here, which do have that larger air volume and have those suspension qualities to them, it's not that stiff of a ride, but it's also not that cush of a ride. It's kind of somewhere in between. And because this is like a banana seat retro style, you know, you can't add a seat post suspension to this thing. You can't really add suspension. So you're kind of stuck with, what you got here. So I don't think that's a bad thing. I like what we got here, but I'm just letting you know, look, you can't really modify this bike a whole lot. Now, it is interesting though, is if you do want to add like a bottle cage boss or an accessory down here, we do have some bosses on the down tube. So you can throw something down there if you want to. This does have fenders, which is nice to kind of help keep the mud, the rain, and if you are riding this thing through like snow, sand, whatever, just helps kind of keep that, you know, off your back and kind of helps to keep it off your pants, stuff like that. Wire management on this bike is pretty good, I would say. Not the best we've seen, not the worst. I like that they've got most of the stuff bundled up right here. They've got the majority of the main bundle like wrapped up. You'll see it goes right into the down tube, and for the most part, it's pretty streamlined, pretty clean bike. Now, as far as the accessories that are included on this bike, there's quite a few and they're pretty good. So first and foremost, we've got this headlight right here. I want to set this down again so I can show you this headlight, because there's a couple of different modes. This headlight is actually really cool, and there's a lot of functionality to this headlight. So I can turn the lights on. Let me power this thing up. Turn the headlights on, and there's a couple different modes. So that's the low mode. I don't know if you can see it, but there's only 3 LEDs, 3 out of 6 illuminated. If I hit this trigger on the top, it'll illuminate all the LEDs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then if I hit this button backwards, I'll show you guys here when we go over the display, it's like the bright mode, the high mode. So it's a pretty bright light. It's really functional. Also, right here, you'll see a horn. Now check this out. I mean, that's loud, man. That's like a little motorcycle horn. That's a really, really good horn. So we've got that coupled with this here in the back. And check that out. We've got turn signals, right? So I can use the actual turn signals on this thing, have a horn, and it kind of just feels like a moped, especially that really powerful motor and that higher top speed. Just cool stuff, man. I really like that. A lot of cool stuff to kind of go over here on the handlebars. And let's go ahead and we'll do that right now. So let's go over the display on this thing. So this is what the display looks like. It's going to be a AddMotor branded Bafang display right here. We've got the independent button pad right here on the left. This is the lights I was talking about. So this is on. This is off, If I do on and then hit this, it'll be, you know, it'll go between 3 and 6 LEDs. If it's on the 6 LEDs, if I push it down, it turns into bright mode. Okay, so that's how that works. Horn right here, and then turn signals right there, okay? On this side, we've got the throttle, and we got a Shimano SIS index trigger shifter, 7-speed. Not my favorite trigger shifter, but you know, hey, it's okay. And since it's paired with that Alta derailleur, that's kind of the upgrade there. So yeah, not a big deal. But what's interesting on this side is the throttle here can be live from 0 miles per hour, or it cannot. You can hit this little button and it kind of changes the function of the throttle. So like on the fly, you can kind of change that to your liking. Very cool stuff. Now for the display itself, we've got a 5-bar battery indicator right here on the top. So that's gonna be 20% increments. Not the most precise battery indicator, but it gives you a fairly good idea of how much range you've got left. Top right corner, odometer, current speed, pedal assist level is gonna be 0 all the way up to 5. And then this is the wattage output from the motor. So this is kind of a cool little piece of information because I can see exactly how hard the motor is working compared to how hard I'm working. And you can kind of get a feel for like how much does 500 watts feel like, how much does that full 750 feel like. It's just a good piece of information. If I just tap the power button, it'll switch to tripometer on the top right, tap it again, goes back to odometer. So not a whole lot of like extra functionality, but this is a good display. Bafang makes really good displays. They're easy to see in direct sunlight. You can't really, I mean, if you don't screw it all the way down like I've done, you can kind of move it and adjust it a little bit to reduce glare, but you don't even really need to because again, you can see this in direct sunlight, so it's not really a big deal. Oh man, what else can we go over here? One more thing I do want to talk about is this does have a aluminum kind of bash guard here that protects the that front chainring, which is nice. So if I do get like a little strike on a log, if I do take this off-road or a rock, whatever, this chainring is going to help protect the teeth, or this chainring guard is going to help protect the teeth of the chainring, help them from getting damaged. So nice little piece right there. But man, I think that is, I think that's pretty much it. All I gotta say is, man, this is one of the most fun bikes we've tested. That motor back there is incredibly powerful. Yeah, the center of gravity is kind of towards the back, so it makes it back heavy, but it almost makes it more fun. It's just that riding posture of like the fat boy, like legs out, arms up. It's just it's a fun way to ride this thing, man. And cruising around town is just, I don't know, it's a joy with this bike, especially that headlight, the turn signals. Yeah, it's good stuff. So look, awesome peeps, I think we have gone over this bike more than enough. Let's take this on a test ride and I will show you this bike in action. So here we go. right, awesome peeps, that is pretty much it for the review of the AddMotoR Motan M-70 retro cruiser electric bike. In summary, again, this thing starts for $1,799, $1,799 USD, which is kind of towards the higher end of the affordable price point, but there's a lot of features on this bike. First and foremost, the 750 watt hub motor there is just, it's like we talked about, it's just incredibly powerful. At 1200 watts or so of peak power, 85 newton meters of torque, this thing really has a lot of get up and go, which is really important again for these fat tire bikes, because you want that extra power to overcome that huge rolling resistance of these fat tires. It's also got the 14.5 amp hour battery, so it's got a pretty decent range of about 55 miles. But really, I mean, besides the fact this thing looks so cool and it's kind of bigger than average than most kind of retro style electric bikes, I love that it has that really powerful horn, really powerful, actually truly functional front headlight. It's got turn signals, it's got a brake light. I mean, this thing has pretty much everything you need to get around town, to be seen, and to be able to even ride it, you know, on roads and change lanes or whatever if you want to. I think this bike is going to excel for people who are looking for a kind of like a chill cruiser. Could you commute with this? Absolutely. But again, because of that banana seat style ride this thing has, the pedal stroke is going to be a little bit cramped compared to like a traditional bicycle where you've got that adjustable height saddle, again, like we talked about. So yes, the pedal stroke is a little bit better on this one compared to most retro style bikes because it's bigger, but as a commuter, I mean, probably really you're going to be using mostly the throttle on this and then pedaling a little bit. So this is geared towards people who want to cruise, people who want to get from point A to point B in style, to have fun, to have a comfortable ride, and honestly to turn heads. This thing is a huge head turner. People like will stop and ask you what this is, where you got it, all that kind of stuff. So look, I hope you awesome peeps are having a fantastic day. Thanksgiving is right around the corner. I hope you have a great holiday season. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.